ahead. Well, Friday we closed down after a nice run up. 2 down days out of the last 6, and we closed right near this trend line that's been descending since March. Okay, we're still in this ascending wedge, and depending on what happens with the dollar, we could either see a bounce and a move higher, okay, in which case we could look at this as a cup and handle, or we could break down and perhaps build a slanted double bottom where we would have a move like so, down, okay, move back up, move back down, and then a move into the November elections. This is highly possible, being this is a ascending wedge. Okay, so ascending wedges typically break to the downside. But let's just look at the fibs on this. Okay, so from this low that we've been watching up to this high, we've narrowly escaped coming down to the 382. So I mean, we could break lower and come down to this lower channel line on Monday and Tuesday and come down to the 50% or the 618. Okay, that's possible as well. So I'd be watching for this level here to hold on any move down to this lower trend line. Okay, so let's look at the dollar and the S&P. Now the S&P cash put in a buy signal on Friday. It hit the 1380 level and filled this box. Okay. Now if we go back and look at February, January, February, that's with the 1 and the 2. By the way, point and figure 1 through 9 is January through September. October, November, and December are A, B, and C respectively. So when you see these on the charts with point and figure, until you actually fill the 1340 level, you don't put an X here. Or conversely, if you're moving to the downside, if you don't fill the 330, in this case you need three boxes to reverse, then you would add these 3 O's. This is February. This was a high. That was our resistance going back to February of 2011. And we have since found support there and have put in a column of X's or buys. Okay. May of 2011, as we all know, was a high. We're above that level as well. Okay, so our next level of resistance to the upside is 1390 here, and also 1400 and 1410. So we got to watch these levels up here. Looking at those point and figure lines transposed into a chart, we see the levels here. Okay, on the S&P 500, this dark line here is the 1370 level, the horizontal, and this level up here is the 1404. Okay, this dark gray line. Okay, so those are the levels we're looking at. We traded briefly above it, 1380, and then we reversed on Friday. We do have our MAs moving higher, and we have the 50 period flattening out, looking like it wants to turn north. So that's a positive for the S&P 500 for a move higher on the ES and the S&P cash. Now looking at the dollar, we've been banging against this level here, this horizontal line at 83.65, but our MAs are all moving upward and we're above resistance levels. Okay, so we can either move back below this and move lower, which looking at the chart it doesn't look plausible, being this is the 20 period here and we're finding support on that level. We found support at the 50 period here, the red line, and now we're finding support at the 20. So something's going to resolve. Let's look at the point and figure. You can see that this level 83.62, 83.65, in this particular point and figure it's 83.62. We hit that in July. Okay, and we backed off of it. We haven't filled the box at 84.36. That's our next level. The 3 is March of 2007. Okay, where we hit that level and that became resistance. Okay, we moved lower. We moved above that level a few times in 2008 and 2009, 2010, but we've broken this downtrend line too, okay, which is automatically input into the point and figure. You can see we're in an uptrend now on the US dollar. Now looking at the monthly chart, you can see we're above a resistance level here, 83.08, which was on that chart as well. Okay, so we have to keep an eye on what happens with the dollar. If we move back down on the monthly chart and find resistance at 83.65, that would be a good for equities. Back to the S&P daily cash chart, you can see that we're making higher lows, okay, higher highs. This one's a little timid here compared to the increase here, the percentage increase. All right, so that's why we're forming this wedge. And we can see this level back here in March where we hit 1378.04. We hit that level and reversed. Okay, so there's a couple of caveats here. You have to watch what the charts do. We would love to see an update on Monday and continuation higher, in which case we would look at this level up here at 1404. Okay, it's either 1404 to the upside or 1340 to the downside, or these MAs. Okay, so those are your areas to keep an eye on and to target for. If you're going to go short, this is what you want to be looking at for covering. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the ETFs to see where we might find some trades this coming week. Okay, XLF, we hit this upper trend line and we're backing off of that. XLK, technology, we were trading inside Kumo and attempting to move higher, but this is moving in the same direction as the S&P. So XLF was relatively weak for the most part, more so than the S&P cash. Materials were above the Kumo and showing some life here. XLE is where we were trading this past week. You can see we, relatively speaking, have been doing very well on the XLE. So looks like we're still going to be trading energy stocks. We could see a pullback, obviously, to this flat span B. Okay, we got pretty far away from taking. That's a nice volume. Let's take a look at the daily on the candle chart. You can see we're overbought. Decent volume. MACD looks like it wants to flatten out, perhaps move lower. But we're contained between the upper Bollinger Band and the 10 period, so this is looking pretty good for the XLE still. XLF, I mean, at some point we're going to get near a buy point. It'd be nice to get oversold and remain above this lower trend line or this midpoint that I've drawn in here as well. Okay, if we come down to this lower trend line and look like we want to bounce, I'll start looking at the banks for a long trade. For the time being, I mean, bonds are going crazy. All right, let's take a look at municipal bonds. They're on a tear, you know. So we have this high that we put in February 2012, and we broke this high here. So we're above this vacuum level here. So bonds could continue to move higher. We want to see some of these back off. All right, 20 years. Well, we have a nice uptrend here, contained between the 10 period and the upper Bollinger Band. Stochastics has turned higher, and MACD continues to move higher. Okay, volume is decent, below average, but decent. The 10-year, same thing. Let's take a look at DBV. This is trending higher, so this is actually good for stocks. Okay, we want to see DBV continue to move higher. We could come back and retest this level here. This is tied to what I said about the US dollar earlier. Okay, and we see this vacuum level up here that we could continue to move higher off of. Well, we're still in an uptrend, so I got to continue to watch this DBV. Euro US dollar continuing the slide. Not looking so good with the Spain news on Friday, which is what created the sell-off that we saw. Jumping back to energy, Consol Energy sitting right on the 20 period, looking very nicely. Let's look at the daily Kumo. We could get a Kumo breakout on the Consol Energy, which would be really nice. We could see in this downtrend that we have broken and retest basically a few of these levels here. Okay, depending on where you draw your trend line. We're inside the Kumo. We'd love to see a Kumo breakout above this band B on volume to signal a continuation long. Okay, because we've been in a downtrend since August of 2011, so this has a nice look to it. Jumping back to some of the spiders, XLU has just been moving higher on volume. Okay, looks pretty decent. Holding the 10 period in the upper Bollinger Band. XLP, same thing. We did lose a 10 period, so if you're thinking about shorting, this looks like a good candidate. Some of the stocks in the XLP, I would take a look at that. The 20 period right here. It is an uptrend, so there's always a possibility it can bounce off the 20 period, but it's only a quarter, 25 cents lower, so something to look at. Find the weaker stocks in the XLP for a short. With stochastics oversold, looks like we want to turn lower. The healthcare, XLV came right back to the 10 period and bounced somewhat, oversold on the 60-minute. And overbought on the daily, so keep an eye on this for a move down to the 20 period and a bounce as well on the healthcare. KOG, this is one I'll be watching this week. Came right down to this rising 200 period and stopped dead in its tracks. Okay, we are overbought right here, and we did see substantial volume on Thursday and Friday. So 20 period is just a little bit below at 830, but I have the August call, so I do have some room. We have this trend line that goes back. Okay, and we could come down. It's right at the 150 and the 200. We could bounce there and move higher. Okay, so they report in first week of August, I believe. What do I have here? 8-2. Okay. Watching Apple 2, of course, with earnings. I have a small position on. I only have 25 shares. We could see a move down, if possible, down to the flat Kijun. I think that's possible with earnings coming right around the corner. So it's more likely that we're going to see a move back into this candle that we put in on Friday. Maybe even take out this thing at 6:15 on Thursday. I think that's probably the more likely scenario, where longs get a little spooked here, maybe sell too much, and that's what I would guess going into Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Google had a nice Kumo breakout on Friday, completely opposite of the S&P on huge volume. IBM did a reversal of Thursday's candle and move. And earnings, okay, we got stuck right here at the Kumo and this upper trend line. So it's possible we could get a TK cross, which is what I look for in the daily, and a move back up through this. Alright, so we have moved down into this channel, and now we're testing the upper trend line. Netflix continues to flag here. It's a possibility we could break through this Kumo and move higher, but for now this is no trade while we're inside of this huge Kumo cloud here. mean, things look somewhat bullish, but with Tenkan, Chiku, and everything else moving sideways, I'd wait on Netflix unless you got some catalyst for a trade higher or lower. Alright guys, so that's going to do it for me. I hope this helps. Look for either a move down to this lower trend line or a move higher. Okay, we have the 618 to watch, 1341.22 on the ES futures. And we have the other information that you can scroll back to the beginning of this to refresh yourself and have some targets for the week. Okay.